On today's show, we are going to discuss the fallout from the first wave of free agency. Who was traded, who was signed, how much did they sign for? Most importantly, what does it all mean from a fantasy football perspective? I think actually what's important in these offseason moves is what these teams are telling us with their actions, not their words. And free agency is a great opportunity to get a glimpse into that. I want to start with story number one. Kenneth Walker, Super Bowl MVP, hits free agency and signs with the Chiefs. 3 years, up to $45 million, includes $28.7 million guaranteed. The Chiefs have had plotters at running back, plenty of them. Kareem Hunt, Isiah Pacheco, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What they have not had recently is a running back who can create big plays on his own, and that is Kenneth Walker's calling card. Yes, he's bad in pass protection. Yes, he takes more negative runs than coaches like, but Walker makes big plays. 15 runs of 20-plus yards over the last 2 seasons. All Chiefs running backs have combined for 2 during that span. So I really like the fit for Kenneth Walker here. Evan, what do you think of the Chiefs' decision to go out and pay Kenneth Walker?
I love the fit on paper. They gave him a lot of money, almost $30 million guaranteed. They knew that this was a weakness for them. I mean, they got tired of running out those plotters, as you mentioned. They offered a 4th-round pick near the trade deadline last year for Breece Hall. So they knew that this was a priority to address, especially with Patrick Mahomes coming off of his injury. They may need to lead on the running game more early in the season in 2026. Kenneth Walker, Kareem Hunt is, obviously one of the least explosive running backs. He scored 15 combined touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. So I think the touchdown upside is just going to be immense for Kenneth Walker in Kansas City. That was not something that he always had the opportunity to do in Seattle because of the presence of Zach Charbonnet. So I think that people are very excited about Kenneth Walker, as they should be. When we get to the fantasy season, which is now, how high is his ADP going to get? Because I could see it going, getting to the point where he might even be considered in some leagues at the 1st, 2nd round turn.
Fantasy people were ahead of market on Kenneth Walker. All of us like Kenneth Walker seemingly more than the NFL has for the last, few years. Then you combine that with a spot in the Chiefs that the fantasy community loves also. We are at 19 overall in our latest ranking update on Kenneth Walker, right around Etienne, Genty, Jeremiah Love, Kenneth Walker, kind of all in a group there for us as of now. The other reason I think it's a good fit, not only can Kenneth Walker make big plays, obviously defense has to respect Patrick Mahomes, but also the screen game. Andy Reid's screen game historically has been very strong. Going back to the Brian Westbrook days, they have not done as much of that lately with this group of running backs that they've had. Kenneth Walker is awesome in the screen game. Not a good 3rd down back. He might not even play on 3rd downs, but early down screens to Kenneth Walker, I think will be there for him as well. Seahawks side of this at running back, obviously their plan going into last year, and there was a really good article in The Athletic about the Seahawks' decisions on all their moves. And I agreed with it. They said the plan was come into this year, let Zach Charbonnet kind of audition to be the lead back, and the plan was to let Kenneth Walker walk all along. That got convoluted after Zach Charbonnet tears his ACL late in the year. We'll see how that rehab goes. Based on that ACL tear, I was a little surprised they didn't try harder to bring Kenneth Walker back. They had the money. We'll talk about the Rashid Shaheed deal later. But right now, the only healthy back on their roster, the Seahawks, is George Halani. Now, Seahawks do have pick 64 and 96 in the draft. I've seen a lot of mocks, Evan, that have your boy, Notre Dame's Jadarian Price, going to the Seahawks at pick 64. But they've left themselves pretty barren here, Evan. What do you think happens with Seattle at running back?
I think that they'll probably draft 2 running backs. That's something that they've done before. John Schneider is never afraid to double tap a particular position. And I think they're just going to remake the room, essentially, because they can't rely on Zach Charbonnet to be an early season factor, maybe even to be a factor at all in 2026, considering how late in the season his ACL tear occurred.
Yeah, and they trusted George Holani. We talked about that a bunch leading up to the Super Bowl. I mean, there were times early in the season where they gave George Holani work when Walker and Charbonnet were both healthy. And then they trust Holani for a bunch of snaps in the NFC Championship game, played in the Super Bowl also. So, yeah, there's something there on George Holani, but I agree with Evan. They're going to add some guys here in the draft. All right, let's go to story number 2 from free agency. Alec Pierce re-signs with the Colts, 4 years, $116 million. Yes, you heard that right. $29 million a year for Alec Pierce. That is roughly the 9th most among all NFL wide receivers in average annual value. For example, Pierce is making almost as much as Amon-Ra St. Brown now. He's not making that much less than guys like Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb. People are struggling to grasp, I think, the general public, I think, is struggling to grasp how you can pay Alec Pierce this much money. We talked about this months ago, Evan. What do you think of the Colts' decision to drop the bag on Alec Pierce?
Well, I think in fantasy terms, the first question is what can become the new target ceiling for Alec Pierce? He's certainly going to see more, not just because he's getting paid, but because they traded away Michael Pittman. Now, Josh Downs is also going to ascend. I think that Josh Downs has a really good chance now to be featured in 2 receiver sets, which could be, I mean, he could maybe be on paper the biggest beneficiary. And then you've got Tyler Warren, and you've got, the fact that the Colts, the offense is still built around Jonathan Taylor, and you have Daniel Jones coming off a torn Achilles. So there's a lot of moving parts here. What kind of production are we going to get out of Alec Pierce? In fantasy terms, I think that he's going to be pretty hotly debated. But he obviously is an ascending player, and they identified him as a priority to keep, considering what they did with, just not just in terms of his contract, but also in terms of moving on from Michael Pittman, who played a really big role in Indianapolis for the last several years.
There were reports that other teams offered more than what the Colts paid for Alec Pierce. And Alec Pierce said he wanted to come back to the Colts. That was very, very interesting to me. One thing about all the rhetoric around Alec Pierce that I think is important is I think teams should be paying for future production in free agency, not a reward for past production. And so when you make a financial commitment like this to Alec Pierce, clearly you're not going to pay for 5 targets per game going forward. So with Michael Pittman gone, more on that in a second, I do think we'll have a role change for Pierce. But my question is, we've only seen him in a deep threat, mostly vertical role. Can he take on more of a load-bearing role? To me, that's an open question, but clearly the Colts think that he can. Totally agree with Evan. Like, Pittman gone is a big win for Josh Downs and Tyler Warren. Like, all those guys were kind of working in the same part of the field. So I'm excited for Downs. I'm like Tyler Warren, and we'll get to Pittman here in a second. Last note for me on Colts. I mean, Daniel Jones played 12 full games last year. Colts went 9-3. We're one of the NFL's best offenses. They're trying to just run it back, and we'll see how that goes. Who they will not be running it back with, though, is Michael Pittman. Colts trade Michael Pittman to the Steelers for a late round pick swap. Pittman then signs a 3-year, $59 million deal with Pittman, with the Steelers. They were just so desperate at wide receiver. I mean, nothing other than DK Metcalf on the roster. I actually think Michael Pittman fits well with DK Metcalf. And I also think Michael Pittman fits well with Aaron Rodgers. Definitely a better on-paper fit with Rodgers than Metcalf is. We'll see if Rodgers comes back. I think he's going to come back to Pittsburgh. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, Evan, what do you think of Steelers going out and making the deal for Michael Pittman?
Yeah, stylistically and tactically, Michael Pittman on paper is a really nice complement to DK Metcalf. It's just, what kind of an offense are we going to run? This offense, I think, is still going to be built very much around the running backs. Jaylen Warren, one of the best tackle-breaking running backs in the league. They give money to Rico Dowdle, who knows Mike McCarthy from Dallas and has been a 1,000-plus yard back in consecutive seasons. Michael Pittman needs volume, and I just don't know that he's going to get it. So to me, from a fantasy standpoint, landing spot, but I can see how you can make the argument that it makes a lot of sense tactically for Michael Pittman to be the bookend to DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, we're down at 115 overall on Pittman. So, not a lot of excitement there on Pittman's landing spot right out of the gate. I do think that even with Arthur Smith gone, they can/should run plenty of two tight end sets. Metcalf, Pittman at wide receiver, Freiermuth, and Darnell Washington at tight end. And at least you have and Evan mentioned Rico Dowdle, we'll get to him in a second, and Jalen Warren. They have a reasonable offense this year, where a lot of times I've looked at Pittsburgh and been like, man, they are just struggling for weapons really bad here. So at least they have something now. All right. Speaking of the Steelers, story 4, free agent running back Rico Dowdle signs with the Steelers, 2 years, $12.25 million. This is an interesting one here. They let Kenny Gainwell go. They have Jalen Warren and Caleb Johnson, still decide to bring in Rico Dowdle. And to me, that makes it clear, hey, we do not see Jalen Warren as a true workhorse. And hey, we really messed up this Caleb Johnson pick. He sucks. So, Evan, any reaction to Rico Dowdle landing with the Steelers?
I think that Rico Dowdle is going to be the lead back for the Steelers. And then Jalen Warren will be an 8 to 11 touch per game, change of pace back who does more in the passing game. So I think that there's another scenario where the two players kind of complement each other well. How many touchdowns are the Steelers going to score? How many touchdowns is Rico Dowdle going to be, able to score in an offense that probably we don't have super high expectations for them from a scoring standpoint. And then he's probably going to lose a ton of passing game stuff to Jalen Warren. So it's an okay, it's a fine landing spot in real life. And it's not very appealing from a fantasy standpoint.
I don't think also they'll be as run heavy as last year. It's hard to get more run heavy than Arthur Smith schemes typically. I don't think that they'll be more run heavy than last year. Last year, there were some slates, especially shorter slates or showdown, where I was using Gainwell and Jalen Warren together, playing them together. I don't know about doing that this year without Arthur Smith. We'll see how it goes. I feel like Rico Dowdle deserves better. Maybe I'm crazy, but I mean, he played for the Cowboys. I thought he played great for the Cowboys. They let him walk for nothing. He played great for the Panthers. They let him walk for nothing. So I don't know. I guess I like Rico Dowdle more than the NFL does, which is what it is. Steelers stuff, though, I feel like they're just destined for mediocrity, man. It's every time I think about the Steelers, I'm like, yeah, 8 wins, 9 wins. I mean, how are they going to beat with this roster and this setup? Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, not to mention upstarts, Denver, Jacksonville. Just feels like another season of trying to scrape into the playoffs for the Steelers, but we'll see.
Spinning their wheels, stuck in purgatory.
All right, here's an interesting one, Evan. Story number 5. Mike Evans signs with the 49ers, reported as 3 years, $60 million, but only $16.3 million in guarantees, which makes sense because Mike Evans will be 33 in August. Now, he's played his entire career with the Bucs. He decides to bolt for the 49ers here, chase a ring, and maybe kind of his swan song here. Clearly, I think a massive, massive, massive upgrade on Jawan Jennings at the X spot. Fills the hole that they need there at wide receiver after the whole Brandon Ayuk mess. Also, Evan, thoughts on Mike Evans finally departing the Bucs for the 49ers?
Well, this is really, really exciting. Kenneth Walker is maybe the most exciting free agency move so far. This is very close, I believe. Mike Evans going to a Kyle Shanahan offense that will absolutely fill it up with targets to an X receiver, as we've seen over and over and over again with Julio Jones and Andre Johnson and Brandon Marshall, the Kubiak Shanahan connection. And we're going to see that's the position that Mike Evans is going to play. And not only do you have Jawan Jennings probably not coming back, you have George Kittle coming off an injury. We don't know when he's going to be available. I think that at least I personally am high still on Ricky Pearsall's talent. He's not shown the ability to stay healthy, and he's still a little bit of an enigma as a talent. And Mike Evans is he has massive, massive target upside in this offense with a quarterback in Brock Purdy, who I think that is a better quarterback than at least the way that Baker Mayfield played last year. Brock Purdy is a better option for Mike Evans, and he has less target competition than he did last year. And I thought that at the end of the season, Mike Evans showed plenty to suggest that he can still play at a very high level.
Yeah, I mean, Evans talked about so many times. Mike Evans put on earth to score touchdowns. Brock Purdy's touchdown rate in his career is also really high. And I think, that's partly Brock Purdy, but also Kyle Shanahan is going to scheme high touchdown rates. So, yes, I think Mike Evans will smash if he's healthy. Evan mentioned Ricky Pearsall. I'm leaving the light on here, man. Like, I actually still think he's really sneaky. Brandon Ayuka's toast. Kittle's coming off the severe injury and he's old. Evans is old and unable to stay healthy recently, at least. CMC is old and coming off an insane amount of touches. You could see if Ricky Pearsall sustains health, a lot of different outs for him to still get a lot of action here this year. And I'm still excited about Ricky Pearsall's outlook. Bucs side. I think they've done a good job preparing for this. Like, they knew they had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as older guys. They got Jalen McMillan, who I think is a hit. They got Emeka Egbuka, who I know struggled down the stretch a lot last year. Still think he's a hit. Godwin's 30 now. I don't know what to think about him. But to me, the departure of Mike Evans, big chance for both Egbuka and McMillan. What do you think about how the Bucs play it here, Evan? Oh, and by the way, they did re-sign Cade Otton 3 years, $30 million. Evan, thoughts on Bucs wideouts here without Mike Evans?
Well, I know that Mike Evans obviously was hurt a lot last year, but you think in terms of like a red zone projection, I think that Cade Otton could get a little bit of a bump. I think that Egbuka showed, I mean, he was scoring a ton of touchdowns in the first half of last season before he had that hamstring injury, and then it kind of became crowded and Baker Mayfield wasn't playing well and things just did not go right for Emeka Egbuka in the second half of last season. Jalen McMillan scored 8 touchdowns as a rookie before he was injured for most of last year. But all those guys are going to be healthy. They at the end of the day, they just need Baker Mayfield to play better than he did last year under Josh Grizzard. And Zach Robinson will obviously be the key to that. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunity open in Tampa Bay. I think that we're going to see I think that they can be successful with this pass catcher core. They need the scheme to be more successful. They need Baker to play better.
And we're at 39 overall on Egbuka right now. I feel like that's a wide range of outcomes, though, there at 39 overall. How will Zach Robinson fare? Can Baker Mayfield play better? How healthy is Chris Godwin? There's a lot of factors here on that Egbuka rank, but I do want to stay optimistic. I just want to note he's not going to be cheap. Like, we're already at 39 overall on Egbuka. Story 6 from free agency. Travis Etienne signs with the Saints, 4 years, $52 million. Not only did the Saints sign Travis Etienne, but they also added guard David Edwards for $64 million. Former Buffalo Bill solidified that left guard spot. They're going to have a legit O-line. They also have Kellen Moore, who I really like. They also have Tyler Shuck, who showed a lot down the stretch last year. They get to play the Falcons, the Bucs, the Panthers 6 times. I mean, you can see it on the Saints offense being fun and Etienne being a huge part of that. So, Evan, what do you think about Etienne's landing spot here? Leaves the Jags for the Saints.
You can build a really exciting case for the Saints 2026 offense. The play volume of Kellen Moore, the scheme of Kellen Moore. They've got 3 first-round picks on their offensive line. They've got a second-round pick in Eric McCoy, and now they add David Edwards to that. So they look loaded on the offensive line. Obviously Chris Olave is coming off of his best season. Tyler Shuck showed that he could play in the second half of last year. I mean, it's pretty exciting, I think, what they've got going in New Orleans. And Travis Etienne, I mean, they paid him serious cash.
Yeah.
So he's going to be the clear lead back. It's just, could Alvin Kamara be annoying to him? Because Alvin Kamara, we kind of know that Alvin Kamara wants to finish his career in New Orleans. You remember he if they had tried to trade him, he was going to say, no, I'd rather retire. Could Alvin Kamara be enough of a thorn in the side of Travis Etienne to limit his upside? I think at the end of the day, Travis Etienne is definitely going to be the lead back. But how big of a role are they going to be willing to give to Alvin Kamara? Because I don't think that he's going anywhere.
I think he might retire. And
that'd be great for Travis Etienne.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some rumors out there about that. I don't know. I mean, this is a huge amount of money to pay if you think that Alvin Kamara is still going to be on the roster here. So I was kind of assuming that maybe he accepts a trade or maybe he retires. They also have Kendry Miller and Devin Neal. Not that I think either of those guys are very good, but if Kamara does end up leaving, I don't think it's crazy to have Travis Etienne in that Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, Bucky Irving type range, like 2-3 turn type stuff. So I'm actually pretty excited about Etienne. We'll keep our eye here on Alvin Kamara's status. The other part of this, Evan, is the Jags side. I mean, the Bashal Tutin hype is going to be absolutely out of control. We're at 48 overall right now, but if they don't add anyone else, the Jaguars, if they don't add anyone else, obviously LaKint Allen will be back to play passing downs, but if they don't add anyone else, we could see like round 3 Bashal Tutin by the summer. I don't know how you feel about that, Evan. I have some thoughts, but yeah, initial thoughts on Jaguars backfield without Travis Etienne.
Well, I think it's fair to kind of ask, in this draft, say Bashal Tutin was in this draft, where would he be ranked among the running backs? Because obviously we have Jeremiah Love at number 1. And then there doesn't seem to be, a definite consensus on who the number 2 back is. And there doesn't seem to be any feeling that another running back is going to go in the first round or maybe even within the top 50 picks. So, and last year's draft was loaded with running backs, which kind of brought down, Bashal Tutin into like, the 4th round, whereas maybe he would have been a 3rd rounder this year. I'm kind of in wait and see mode here because the Jaguars absolutely could still add to their running back stable. I don't think that LaQuint Allen is anything more than like a Samaje Perine sort of player. But I get the excitement about Bashal Tutin. I think he showed just enough last year for optimism that he could at least get a shot to be a lead back here in what, in the second half of last season was one of the best offenses in the league as Trevor Lawrence took a huge step under Liam Cohen.
So a lot of people that don't like Tutin are going to cite some efficiency metrics from last year. I want to be clear that they used Bashal Tutin a lot in short yardage and goal line. Your efficiency metrics are not going to look good when you play a lot in short yardage and goal line. But I thought it was really encouraging that they trusted him to do that. And I just keep going back to the pre-draft stuff ahead of the 2025 draft. The Jaguars' new GM, he's like getting the job by pounding the table for Bashal Tutin. And then in the season, when he was healthy, the coaches actually trusted him. I mean, they used him in goal line and short yardage, as I said. Biggest game of the year, playoff game against the Bills. Tutin's been hurt. He comes back off the bench and plays 16 snaps in that playoff game against the Bills. I thought that was encouraging from a trust perspective as well on Tutin. So I do think they like him. We'll see what else they add. But yeah, if they don't add anything, it's going to be, the hype train is going to be absolutely out of control on Bashal Tutin. Story 7 from free agency, Romeo Doubs, 4 years, $70 million deal with the New England Patriots. Note that right before free agency, the Patriots let Stephon Diggs go. I kind of think they just think Romeo Doubs is better. Like he's going to play the same role as Steph Diggs. They just would prefer to have Romeo Doubs, who I think is far from a star, but probably a better player than the general public gives him credit for. Evan, what do you think of Patriots' decision? Let go of Steph Diggs, replace him with Romeo Doubs.
Not surprising with the Stephon Diggs stuff. I mean, it's a little bit too much drama, I think, for a Mike Vrabel locker room. And he was pretty good. I mean, he was certainly really good. Stephon Diggs was really, really good on a per route basis last year. But I mean, moving on from him, not surprising, at his age and everything else. So you think that they're just going to stick Romeo Doubs in that, because Romeo Doubs has been an ex-receiver in Green Bay. See, my first reaction was like, oh, this is not good news for Kayshon Boutte. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Josh McDaniels sorts through these options. He's always shown a willingness to play a bunch of different receivers, multiple tight end sets. He uses a fullback. He's got a lot of different personnel packages that he uses. But now they're paying Romeo Doubs like a number 1 receiver. I will say that there are still multiple Eagles beat writers that think that the Patriots are still an option to acquire A.J. Brown. Mm-hmm. And actually Cam Wolfe, who I think is now NFL Network, reported that AJ Brown could still end up with the Patriots. So it's a little TBD here. I think that Romeo Doubs would probably be stretched in a true number one receiver role. Obviously, AJ Brown can do that, but I don't know. I think that we're still waiting for this whole thing to sort itself out.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Kayshon Boutte showed enough last year. I would not, they need weapons. I would not be taking Kayshon Boutte off the field. I mean, right
He's
now,
also a guy who can win downfield, and that's how Drake May won as a passer last year. So I don't know. I don't know what to think yet. I don't think that this is all set in stone.
Yeah. I mean, their top 3 wide receivers right now, I'd call it Dobbs, Boutte, Mac Hollins. Maybe you could throw Kyle Williams into the mix. It's far from intimidating. You know, they have Hunter Henry. They got to get more out of Travion Henderson in the passing game. But clearly, I don't think they should be done trying to upgrade Drake May's weapons. But I do respect them for seemingly having a plan and not going nuts in free agency here. So, yeah, super interesting with the Patriots right now. Packers side, I think, is also interesting here. Like, Christian Watson, please stay healthy and play full time. I'm super interested in seeing what Christian Watson can do over a full season as a featured player and stay healthy as like an every down player. The Packers have not shown much interest in making Jaden Reed a full-time player, and Matthew Golden had that really scary, poor rookie year. So I'm excited for Christian Watson. You know, we're pretty high on him here already. Obviously, I like Jaden Reed. I wish he played more. Golden is going to be the one that's super interesting. Evan, any thoughts on Packers without Romeo Doubs?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. I would just say that Christian Watson really took a step, I thought, last year. I think the Packers thought that Christian Watson took a step because they were using him in like a true number one receiver role after he returned. And he kind of returned surprisingly quickly as well. I mean, I think that he crushed his rehab, obviously. And yeah, I think that he's like the clear-cut favorite to be the Packers' number one receiver going forward. And this opens up some extra opportunity for him. Yeah, excited about Christian Watson.
All right. Story number 8, Kenny Gainwell to the Bucs, 2 years, $14 million. So the Bucs decide to let Rachaad White walk, and they bring in what they seem to believe is a better version of Rachaad White, at least based on last year where Gainwell was clearly like the best player on the Steelers. Yeah, I guess I would say Kenny Gainwell is better than Rachaad White. The question to me is, what does this mean for Bucky Irving, who I like in the passing game? Already has 77 catches in his first 27 NFL games, despite not being a full-time player until the end of his rookie year. Evan, what do you think Gainwell's role will be versus Bucky and how this plays out in Tampa?
Yeah, I think it hurts Bucky. I think it really hurts Bucky because Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, they're paying him pretty good money, 2 years, $14 million. That's more than Rico Dowdle got. That's more than Tyler Allgeier got. You know, he has done short yardage stuff in the past in Philadelphia, and obviously he's really good in the passing game. So I don't know, and also the Bucs were pulling Bucky Irving at the goal line last year. You remember for Sean Tucker?
Yep.
Not great. I think it's not going to be a great fantasy situation. The one thing, Rachaad White is not going to be back with Tampa Bay, and he has been heavily connected to the Jaguars because of the Liam Cohen connection.
What about the Seahawks?
And the Seahawks?
I think he should go to the Seahawks, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
That makes sense. I just have seen him heavily rumored to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that we have not, reached the point where obviously he is signed with any team.
Bucs also made the decision, which somewhat surprised me. They could have gotten Sean Tucker back for just $3.5 million, and they declined to do so. I continue to think that me and the fantasy community likes Sean Tucker more than the NFL does, and that's kind of bearing out here. But yeah, I thought that was at least notable on the Bucs stuff. Last thing for me on the Bucs, from like a real life perspective, they did a good job with their running back room, man. When we talk about not investing a lot of capital when you're not a good team at running back, Bucky Irving, round 4 pick, he's basically free against the salary cap. Kenny Gainwell was only like 2% of the salary cap, and they have a pretty solid room, with Bucky and Gainwell for very little salary cap spent. All right, Evan, my personal favorite one here. Well, not favorite based on landing spot, but favorite player. Number 9, Malik Willis signs with the Dolphins, 3 years, 67.5 million. I think it's important to note that this is not true starting quarterback money. Again, 3 years, 67 million is not true starting quarterback money in today's NFL. And I think the reason is Malik Willis has only attempted 155 passes in his career, and he's only really operated out of extremely run heavy styles, not like pro heavy or pro style offenses. So he has to settle on the money for now, go out and prove it. I think from a real life perspective, it's going to be tough for Willis to prove it in this situation. McDaniel's gone. Tyreek is gone. Ton of other guys are gone. The rebuild is on. The coaching staff for Miami, I think, sucks. But Malik Willis, from a fantasy perspective, is a whole other story. So, Evan, what do you think about how this plays out for Malik Willis in Miami?
Yeah, if you stare too much at the situation with Bobby Slowick and a defensive-minded head coach and, first-time head coach who was in college at Boston College a couple years ago, and Jeff Hafley, and the offensive line, and if you get caught up in the environment for Malik Willis, and I mean it could catch up to him, then you're not going to be too excited about Malik Willis. But if you look at the player independent of all that and the dual threat capability that he has, I mean. And by the way, you're not the only person who has suggested recently that they think that Malik Willis is maybe the best running quarterback, just pure running quarterback in the NFL. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah who actually said that recently. You got to focus on, if you want to be excited about Malik Willis, focus on the things that he independently can do, not his situation, because his situation is really, really rough on paper.
So we just did the biggest hits and misses show, Evan, and one of my biggest misses was Justin Fields. And what I said about Justin Fields is a lot of the stuff that I'm about to say about Malik Willis.
Me too.
I mean, he is a crazy runner from the quarterback position. I actually think Malik Willis is a better runner than Justin Fields, and like on par with peak Lamar, just an insane runner. I'm glad Daniel Jeremiah agrees with me. I'd actually like for you to refer to me as King Tape Bro from now on. But yes, Malik Willis has played 547 NFL snaps. That's like 9 games worth. He's rushed for 405 yards and 4 touchdowns in those. I just don't want to ignore the situation so much that it runs out like Fields. Fields got benched for Tyrod Taylor. After they give Malik Willis this deal, do you bench Malik Willis? It's kind of a similar deal to what Fields had. I don't know. What do you think about bench risk? Yeah.
I was going to say it's almost like Justin Fields' deal adjusted a little bit for inflation.
Yeah.
Is what the Dolphins gave to Malik Willis. It is an additional year, but in terms of average annual value, it's just the Justin Fields deal adjusted for inflation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way that ran out for me, I'm going to try to be a little cautious on Malik Willis.
I don't know if it's even possible to be as bad as what happened with the Jets, because dude, it's wild. Like Aaron Glenn had to fire almost, literally his entire coaching staff in order to keep his job. I think that Jeff Hafley probably is not going to end up having to do that. But I mean, it's scary. But I think it's almost like it can't possibly go as bad as Justin Fields' situation did.
And the sample size is so small, but last year Malik Willis's progression as an efficient thrower was evident, and so there's something to hang your hat on there. We are currently at 120 overall on Malik Willis. His ADP is 128. I'm taking shots there, man. You're not gonna be able to stop me. These quarterbacks that can run for 100 yards in a game, if I get burned, I get burned. I just can't pass on that at 120. Story 10. J.K. Dobbins re-signs with the Broncos, 2 years, $20 million, $8 million of that is fully guaranteed. This is way more money than I thought J.K. Dobbins would get considering his injury history. Again, 2 years, $20 million, $8 million fully guaranteed for a guy who had a 2023 Achilles tear, 2021 horrific knee injury, 2025 Liz Frank. It's a lot of money. The Broncos have been linked to basically every running back, Dave Montgomery, Breece Hall, Etienne. So from that context, I guess Dobbins back is maybe the best case scenario for RJ Harvey. Evan, what do you think of Broncos' decision to bring back J.K. Dobbins here on real money?
Yeah, the money surprised me as well. It actually makes the Cowboys deal with Javonte Williams look pretty good, actually, and I was critical of that on our last show. But that deal now looks good after J.K. Dobbins got more money on an annual basis than Javonte Williams did. I also think it's the best case scenario for J.K. Dobbins. It's funny, like Sean Payton will just pay his dudes. He gave Adam Troutman 3 years and $18 million. Like, no one else was going to give that to Adam Troutman except for Sean Payton, like for sure, across the rest of the NFL. He loves J.K. Dobbins. But you're right. I think that you could sell it as a positive for R.J. Harvey too, just because J.K. Dobbins is such a poor bet to stay healthy over the course of a season. But I do think that there's no doubt that J.K. Dobbins will open the season as the Broncos lead back. It's just at what point, will he get hurt early or will he get hurt late or will he not get hurt at all? We'll see.
I mean, this is like close to what the top running backs were getting. It's like, or not the top, but like some of the like secondary tiers. So J.K. Dobbins, they think he's going to be healthy. When he was healthy last year, J.K. Dobbins ran circles around R.J. Harvey. And we talked about this a lot last week. I want to leave room for R.J. Harvey to get better. But if J.K. Dobbins is healthy, I would project J.K. Dobbins as a lead back here. Now, R.J. Harvey's best asset is as a pass catcher in space. He is not a reliable player in pass protection, though. So he needs to catch the ball in early downs. He definitely can. He definitely will. I don't want to give up on R.J. Harvey at all. And again, I think this Dobbins thing is like one of the best cases that it could have run out for him. But yeah, I'll be really interested to see how healthy J.K. Dobbins is come training camp before making any sweeping decisions on how I'm going to handle R.J. Harvey. Do I want to spend 6 hours getting tilted at myself playing actual golf? No. Do I want to play fantasy golf? Yes, badly. Our golf product at ETR contains everything you need to play DFS golf at the highest level. That means projections for every player in every event, showdown projections, the industry's best ownership projections for both small and large field, odds to make the cut, weekly shows, Discord Q&As, and tons more. For details and a full content schedule, head to the golf tab on establishthерun.com or click the link in the description below. Story 11, I want to go back to actually before free agency, Evan, one that happened after we recorded last week. Bears trade DJ Moore plus a 5th rounder to the Bills in exchange for a round 2 pick. So again, this went down before free agency. And when you look at the prices on some of these guys like Alec Pierce, Wandale Robinson, Jalen Naylor, Rashid Shaheed, maybe it's not so bad to give a round 2 pick for DJ Moore. But I will say my first thought was that this was a big overpay by the Bills because DJ Moore will be 29 next month. He was not good last season. I don't think he's going to be a true alpha for the Bills. It doesn't really solve their alpha problem. But that said, I do think DJ Moore playing true Z, the Z position for Josh Allen, is a really nice fit. And clearly it was a massive need. So I get it from a desperation standpoint. Evan, what do you think of Bill's decision to give a round 2 pick for DJ Moore?
Well, my first reaction was like, what a jerk it makes Brandon Beane look like after that rant that he went on early last offseason, saying that the Bills don't need to address the receiver position. Now he goes out, overpays in terms of draft cost, and didn't get the Bears to eat any of DJ Moore's salary. They obviously were going to get rid of him, and he still paid, a premium price for DJ Moore, who, you look at his advanced stuff, and he's been on a multi-year decline. It's not just last year. I mean, the year before, he wasn't very good either. So, I mean, I think it's a fine landing spot for DJ Moore's fantasy potential, getting paired with Josh Allen in a receiver core where there's not a ton of target competition outside of Dalton Kincaid, who can't stay healthy. But it made Brandon Beane look like even more of a jerk because he was proved wrong, and he had to admit it. And in order to admit it, he had to overpay.
I mean, I'm glad because part of that rant was like, this isn't fantasy football, guys. Everybody grew up playing fantasy football, and
we shouldn't care about talking about fantasy football. He should care about putting the best pieces that he possibly can around this generational quarterback that he has and doing his job. It's still upsetting that he wound up getting a promotion out of the deal after the season, and Sean McDermott got fired. Sean McDermott was the guy who had to deal with the roster that Brandon Beane unsuccessfully put together.
if you want to make a case for DJ Moore outplaying what he's done lately, catchable ball rate from Caleb Williams has not been good. Catchable ball rate when you're playing with Josh Allen is going to be very good. So, from an accuracy perspective, I think DJ Moore does get a good upgrade there. Initially, we're at 70th overall on DJ Moore here in the ranks, but we'll see what happens. On the other side of this, Evan, there's been arguments, in my mentions at least, about who you would prefer between Rome Odunze and Luther Burden with DJ Moore gone. I personally do not think there will be a real role change for Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze was already playing almost every snap. To me, the real role change comes for Luther Burden, who struggled to top 60% of the snaps in so many games last year. What if this season Luther Burden plays Z in 2 wide receiver sets and slot in 3 wide receiver sets? That would be really exciting for Luther Burden. So I personally prefer Burden over Dunze right now. I don't know what you think, Evan. Any thoughts on Bears fallout with no DJ Moore?
I think that after 2 seasons, the jury is out on what kind of a player
Rome Odunze, yeah.
Rome Odunze can be. And I think that the jury is not out on what kind of a player Luther Burden could be. I mean, I think the ceiling is higher for Luther Burden, like no question. So I think I'm going to take my chances in that debate on Luther Burden. I do think I'll end up being optimistic on Rome Odunze as a third-year player who was a top 10 draft pick. But I think that the ceiling is certainly higher on Luther Burden.
Right now, we're at 45 overall on Burden and 52 on Odunze. So pretty close there, but we do have Burden ahead right now. Story 12. Wandale Robinson signs with the Titans, 4 years, $70 million, $38 million guaranteed. I don't doubt that Wandale Robinson is a nice player. He's only 25 years old. He's earned an absurd 280 targets over the last 2 seasons. But man, not going to be good in yards per target, I don't think. Doesn't score touchdowns. He's just not the kind of player I'd be building a pass game around. But clearly, new Titans offensive coordinator Brian Daboll wanted him. I thought he overpaid for Wandale. I also thought he overpaid for Dan Bellinger, who is also a former Giant. Also brings in Cordell Flott from the Giants as well. So Daboll went out and got a bunch of his guys that were available from the Giants. Evan, what do you think about what the Titans did with Wandale and everyone else?
I'm upset because I really like Chimere DK.
Yeah.
And I think that this could be a big time obstacle in the way of Chimere DK, who, was not Brian Daboll was not around when Chimere DK was drafted. Brian Daboll, I'm sure that he's watched tape on him, but he went out and got a sort of similar styled player, or at least a player that is going to be used similarly tactically to what Chimere DK could do. So that was my first reaction. Not super excited about Wandale Robinson's fantasy potential or anything like that. And God, they gave him a lot of money for a little dude who doesn't really stretch the field. So I don't know. I hope it's not RIP Chimere DK.
Yeah, they still have Calvin Ridley on the roster. Ion Manora gave them some snaps last year, and Evan mentioned DK, who I like. Also, they also have Gunnar Helm, who Chiga Okonkwo is still a free agent. I wish they would just roll with Gunnar Helm, but so many teams are going to be doing multiple tight end stuff this year. So Bellinger and Helm together, they'll at least both see the field at times. But yeah.
You think they're going to draft Jeremiah Love?
I mean, when you're in the middle of a rebuild.
Last show that I thought that Jeremiah Love could go to the Cardinals. I don't think that's happening anymore.
Yeah. We'll get to Allgeier in a second. I mean, when you're the Titans and you're in a full rebuild, taking running back at 4 overall is not something that I would personally do, but, I'm not in the NFL. Story 13. Isaiah Likely signs with the Giants, 3 years, $40 million. Harbaugh, of course, knows Isaiah Likely well from Baltimore. I thought it was a bit of an odd fit as Likely's skill set overlaps with Theo Johnson's a bunch. But yeah, I mean, given the loss of Wandale Robinson, we could see 2 tight end stuff from the Giants this year, much like a lot of teams are going to play, Neighbors, Slayton, Likely, and Theo. Evan, what do you think of Isaiah Likely to the Giants here for $40 million?
And it's also with a new coaching staff, in New York, who knows what they think of Theo Johnson?
Yeah.
We know that John Harbaugh knows Isaiah Likely. and we know that Isaiah Likely can play. I mean, he's limited, I think, in terms of just being a true pass catching specialist. I mean, he looks like a wide receiver out there. But I mean, he's going to get the first crack at that pass catching tight end role with Jackson Dart.
Yeah. I mean, the health of Malik Neighbors is going to be one of the offseason's biggest stories. I don't know where to take Malik Neighbors right now. It's so hard to get a read on his health, but we're watching that one closely. By the way, so many rumors we talked about last week around the Giants and running backs always seemed weird and unlikely. They have not added any running backs as of this recording. I think they should just roll with Scattaboo and Tyrone Tracy. And it sounds like, at least for now, that's what they're going to do, but we'll see. Ravens without Likely. And by the way, Charlie Kolar's also gone. So Mark Andrews splits without Isaiah Likely are definitely better. And by the way, Mark Andrews feels old. He'll be 31 in September. He's not that old for a tight end. So
he just looks really old when he plays.
I was going to say I'm kind of excited for Mark Andrews this year, but maybe I'm off, Evan. And I do think they'll probably draft tight end also. But what do you think about Ravens without Likely and Charlie Kolar also gone?
Yeah, the Ravens love to draft tight ends.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they'll make more additions. I mean, it looks nice for Mark Andrews on paper right now, though. Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Okay. Story 14, Tyler Allgeier gets out of the shadow of Bijan Robinson, signs with the Cardinals 2 years, $12.25 million. I mean, it's just not an ideal setup for Allgeier, like a power back, relies on touchdowns. I think he's actually decent / good, but I don't know if he's going to get to show it here, especially with James Conner back in the mix on a revised contract. Trey Benson, I guess, is still in the mix. And Allgeier only got 2 years, $12.2 million. So not a big financial commitment either. Evan, what do you think of this one, Allgeier to the Cardinals?
Yeah, James, I just think that James Conner is going to be really, really annoying. He's at that, he's kind of that player, David Montgomery, Kareem Hunt. Not that those guys are they're on the same spectrum. Obviously, David Montgomery is way better than Kareem Hunt, but that older running back that the coaching staff just loves, and he ends up playing way more than anybody thinks that he should. And I think that's what it's just going to be really, really annoying. I think James Conner. I think it might be over for Trey Benson.
Yeah,
and Trey Benson has given us. He's shown next to nothing since entering the league. They're on a new coaching staff now. They re-signed James Conner. They gave Tyler Allgeier money. I'm sure that they could. They would give up. They would give up Trey Benson for a 7th round pick. I don't even know if they could get that just because of how little that he has shown.
Yeah. Cardinals are a mess, and it's not good for anyone who relies on touchdowns like Allgeier might. I mean, they took on $54.7 million in dead cap just to get rid of Kyler Murray, and now it sounds like they're going to ride with Jacoby Brissett. Imagine thinking that 2 years ago, 54.7 in dead cap money on Kyler. Let's just go with Jacoby Brissett. They should be tanking, honestly. They should be tanking.
I mean, I feel like they are. I feel like they almost feel like they have no choice but to tank. However, their GM, Monty Ossenfort, he's got a horrible record as the GM. Don't you think that he would get fired after a 3-14 season? And then you got to get a new GM. And I mean, they are an absolute mess. There doesn't seem to be a cohesive plan. But I do think that they are. I mean, they're certainly in position to tank. So are the Jets, I think.
Well, listen, that can be really good for us. We saw last year Jacoby Brissett drop back at this outrageous rate, and you see Trey McBride and Michael Wilson going absolutely nuts. If you think they're going to play that way again and be so bad again, and Brissett's going to drop back 45, 50 times a game again, it's going to be a printing press, for Michael Wilson, Trey McBride, and maybe the Nepo baby, Marvin Harrison Jr. here as well. Rashid Shaheed, story 15. This is what I was talking about before. They let Kenneth Walker go. They re-signed Rashid Shaheed, 3 years, $51 million. Shaheed averaged just 2.8 targets per game as a Seahawk, and he gets $51 million. And I get he had some nice jet sweeps. He was a huge asset in the return game. This is a lot of money. I'm not sure that I would have given Shaheed the bag over Kenneth Walker if that was my choice, given the Charbonnet stuff. But I guess I get it. Evan, thoughts on Seahawks' decision to bring back Shaheed here, $51 million?
Yeah, and obviously Clint Kubiak, who was his boy from New Orleans, is gone. I do think that it should help, at least theoretically, that Rashid Shaheed will have a full offseason with Sam Darnold, and in this offseason, or in the offense with Brian Fleury, the new OC. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the Seahawks are going to want to change what they do. I also think that it's conceivable that the Seahawks feel really good about what they got from Rashid Shaheed last year. I mean, they should, considering all of his return game contributions, and this passing game is just going to continue to be centered around JSN. I think that there's almost no way that Rashid Shaheed can't be more involved than he was last year, but he could also be really, really inconsistent, really boom busty, who usually ends up busting on a weekly basis more than he booms statistically on offense.
One thought that I had was if you're going to give Rashid Shaheed $51 million, maybe he'll play more over Cooper Kupp. Like 2 wide receiver sets instead of Kupp. Let's get Shaheed out there after we gave him the bag. Cooper Kupp will be 33 years old in June. I know he's still reliable, whatever. He's pretty dusty at this point. They also have Torrey Horton. Yeah. And I liked Torrey Horton last year. I thought, when he played well. So yeah, they have some options here, but I would not be like wanting to draft Kupp. I had 0 Kupp last year, and I'll probably have 0 Kupp again this year. Story 16, Isiah Pacheco to the Lions as the David Montgomery replacement. I know a lot of people are like, oh, see, they brought in another power back. Gibbs is going to lose the goal line stuff again. I just think Isiah Pacheco is a worse player than David Montgomery in almost any way and every way I can think of. But the biggest thing to me is that Demont is so much better in short yardage. The Lions consistently used Montgomery ahead of Gibbs at the goal line, as we talked about last week. But the Chiefs didn't like Pacheco in short yardage. They used Kareem Hunt there. In other words, I still think Gibbs comes out as a big winner here when you exchange David Montgomery for Isiah Pacheco. But Evan, what do you think about this one? Lions replacing David Montgomery with Isiah Pacheco.
I think it's a big win for Jahmyr Gibbs, especially if this is all that the Lions do. I still think that they could draft an RB. But I think it's a really, really, and it would solidify me as having Jahmyr Gibbs as the 1.01 overall. Jahmyr Gibbs, actually, despite the fact that David Montgomery would be used in short yardage and near the goal line, Jahmyr Gibbs still had a very high success rate at the goal line. Isiah Pacheco was specifically pulled at the goal line in favor of Kareem Hunt in Kansas City. Doesn't do much in the passing game. Look, Isiah Pacheco was a 7th round pick out of Rutgers. He has had a successful career considering that, but he is a very, very, below replacement level kind of running back. And this just solidifies to me Jahmyr Gibbs as the 1.01.
Yeah, and people are going to push back. They're going to say, well, listen, Bijan doesn't have to fight with Allgeier for goal line stuff anymore. My counter.
And that's nice, but you're talking about a lot less bankable offense as a whole in Atlanta this year with a ton of moving parts. Who's going to play quarterback in Atlanta? Michael Penix, Tua?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, actually. But that was going to be my take. Also, Gibbs is the 1.01 for me because of offensive stability out of the Lions, which I'm not sure I can count on with the Falcons. Otherwise, I think it's super close between those two guys. But yeah, Gibbs for me at the 1 for now also. Story 17, Travis Kelce, Evan's boy, re-signs with the Chiefs 1 year, $15 million. This is the second straight year people thought Travis Kelce was going to retire. Second straight year, he says, nope, I'm going to play. Last year was really rough for Kelce. They needed him badly given Xavier Worthy's injury, which Kelce, induced or whatever, Rashee Rice's woes, suspension, injury. And yet, even with them needing him, Kelce bottoms out just 17% targets per route run, way off where he's been even in recent years. So he's come back for one more ride, Evan. I'm not too optimistic on this one. What do you think about Kelce here at the tight end position?
Yeah, did you see that Kelce said that one of the driving forces behind him deciding to return was that Tay was telling him, I wouldn't want him around the house either if I was her. But I don't know. We kind of know what to expect out of a 36-year-old tight end who had a great career at this stage. He's going to catch enough passes to be a factor in fantasy, and probably not make a huge difference. But that rapport that he has with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, that continues even as as Travis Kelce's playmaking ability declines.
Yeah, I mean, we're at 146 overall on Kelce right now, right in around like Hunter Henry, Jawan Johnson. I could see him creeping up maybe on name value, but certainly not excited about that one. It is the offseason, of course, but thanks to our partners at DraftKings, football never sleeps. Early Bird Best Ball is back. Get a head start on the season and compete for your share of $1 million in total prizes before the rest of the field even jumps in. If you are new to Best Ball, it is my personal favorite form of fantasy because it's only the best part, the draft. No waivers, no trades, no setting your lineup. So download the DK Daily Fantasy app today and draft your early bird best ball lineup now. Drafts stay open until the season kicks off, so sign up using the link in the show notes or the QR code on the screen to take your shot at a share of $1 million in prizes in early bird best ball. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most states. Restrictions apply. Terms at DraftKings.com. Sponsored by DraftKings. Story 18, the one that Evan just alluded to, Tua Tagovailoa signs with the Falcons, 1 year, $1.3 million. So the Dolphins are taking on $99 million. I believe that's an NFL record. $99 million in dead cap to get rid of Tua. That's how bad they want to get rid of him. Falcons then bring him in for $1 million to compete with Michael Penix, a pair of lefty quarterbacks with shaky outlooks here for Kevin Stefanski. Evan, who do you think wins this job? Or I guess maybe not who wins this job. Who would you rather have under center at this point, Tua or Penix? And I understand Penix is coming off of the ACL tear, but yeah, thoughts on this situation here in Atlanta?
I don't have any firm thoughts. I think that they'll probably both end up making starts over the course of the season. I think that at least there's maybe still a shot with Michael Penix. I don't have any optimism at this stage for Tua, where he is at physically, stuff about, his leadership in Miami either. I mean, I would rather see Michael Penix play for sure, just to make sure that he's not the solution, because I feel like we definitely can say that Tua is not the solution.
I would leave Penix in. And
you love that. You love that one.
And I just think his arm is more live. All jokes aside, I just think he has a more live arm. And if both guys suck, at least you get the guy with the live arm. Yeah. All right, a few more small ones here to wrap it up. Story 19, Charlie Kolar signs with the Chargers, 3 years, $24 million. I just want to note this one because it is another sign that the Chargers will be among the many teams that want to use more 12 and 13 personnel this season. Obviously, have a nice hit with Oronde Gadsden as a receiving tight end, Kolar as the blocking tight end, true inline. I guess I'm just curious, Evan, how much, if at all, you think Kolar signing affects Gadsden's outlook, and any other thoughts on this one?
He replaces and is probably an upgrade on Will Dissly. They gave him a decent amount of money, 3 years, $24.3 million. But it's just, Oronde Gadsden is not going to be an every down player.
Yeah.
Like we know that for sure, which is going to make him really inconsistent in fantasy. He's going to have, a good game every now and again because he's a big time athlete, plays with Justin Herbert. Everyone, should be excited about the Mike McDaniel offense, but it's going to limit the consistency big time around Gadsden.
Agreed. And we have Gadsden right next to Dalton Kincaid in the rankings. And I think that kind of makes sense where both of them are in really good offenses with really good quarterbacks, but they're going to be partish time players here as pure pass catchers. 99 overall for us on Gadsden right now, right next to Dalton Kincaid. Story 20. We don't do all the offensive lineman stuff on here for various reasons, but I did want to highlight Tyler Linderbaum's deal here. Goes to the Raiders, 3 years, $81 million. I mean, feels like an overpay. $27 million a year for a center. I think Brandon Thorne believes Creed Humphrey is the best center in the NFL, and Creed Humphrey is only making $18 million a year. They go to 27 on Linderbaum. Do you think this has an impact for Ashton Genty, Evan, and any other Raiders thoughts?
It should help them. Now they have left tackle and center solved with Colton Miller returning healthy. So they have that for, Fernando Mendoza. I think that they still need to make moves on the offensive line, though. I mean, this is. I think that if they do, though, they can maybe have the Raiders can maybe have a fairly interesting offense. I think they've got a chance at least having an interesting offense with Brock Bowers back healthy as well. They kind of need to have an interesting offense because their defense. I mean, they got nothing on defense, especially after trading away Max Crosby. Maybe a little bit of a sneaky shootout team. I mean, certainly it helps. You got center and you got left tackle solidified.
Yeah, I mean, they spent a ton in free agency, and in the Crosby deal, they got Ravens 2026 round 1 pick and Ravens 2027 round 1 pick. So yeah, I mean, they have assets for sure. Do the Raiders? We'll see. Last one here came in just before we got set to record. Jets bring back old friend Geno Smith via trade. It was a late round pick swap. I don't know what the Jets are doing, man. They signed some pass rushers. They bring back Geno to play ahead of Fields. I don't know, Evan. Any thoughts on Geno with the Jets?
Yeah, almost like with the Cardinals, they are almost forced to tank this year, and they've got a coach, Aaron Glenn, who after his first year had to fire his entire staff, and now they have to turn to Geno Smith at quarterback. Which, I mean, it's almost like a joke, like that Geno Smith is back with the Jets. I do think that you could build a case that his addition could be good news for Garrett Wilson, and maybe Breece Hall to an extent.
Yeah.
If Geno Smith can play more in line with how he did with Seattle as opposed to last year with the Raiders. But I mean, the Jets are obviously going nowhere again.
Yeah. So my take last year, and I was like almost full fade on Breece and Garrett Wilson, was like, yeah, I like them as players. They're on the Jets. Can they really burn me? I feel the same way this year because you don't get a Jets discount on ADP. Breece Hall's ADP is 31.1. Garrett Wilson's is 38.8. There's no Jet discount there. I mean, if there is, it's very, very small. So I don't think those guys are going to burn me at those prices. We'll see if their ADP drops. But yeah, I agree on paper. Like a pocket quarterback for Garrett Wilson is better than what Justin Fields would have been. So yeah. All right. We will be back on Friday, most likely, for more free agency fallout reaction as signings continue to roll in. In the meantime, be sure to check the free agency tracker that Evan and Daigle are doing, as well as Jack's fallout articles. All our best ball rankings are updating as well. Also, the players is Thursday. Check out the golf tab at establishthorun.com for details on all our coverage and our projections, and the college basketball tab for March Madness content and projections. For Evan, producer Luke, producer Ryan, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.